this so many times, and it's about divorce, but more specifically, are you ready to divorce? So the stats are astounding. We all know nearly 50% of marriages end in divorce. You've mentioned this before as well. Second and third marriages are 2 to 3 times more likely to end in divorce. And part of that is because the lessons weren't learned or haven't been learned. There isn't enough introspection happening.
Right.
And this was shocking to me. Less than 10% of couples are thriving.
About
These
7%.
are couples that do stay married.
Yes. It's crazy.
What do you mean by thriving?
Thriving. People who are, the couples who actually are married, only about 7% of couples say they're thriving. They love being married. They've got a thriving marriage. So even though there's a lot of people who are married who are suffering. Right. So the stats are really scary and really dismal, and yet the exciting thing is that this is such a fixable topic. This is such a fixable topic, which is why I'm actually so passionate about it.
Okay, well let's talk about how you can fix this, or how we need to be thinking about marriage and subsequently divorce. Your first tip is put it in perspective.
We have got to put it in perspective, and so one of the things that marriage counseling is about half of what I do at my office. And one of the things I find really interesting is people are like, well, he's a workaholic, or he doesn't understand me, or he's not a great partner, and we kind of like point the finger. And we've tried. I'm like, okay, so what have you tried? And a lot of times people are like, well, we've suffered for 10 years and 15 years, and I say it does not matter how long you've suffered. What matters is in terms of how much training you actually have. So putting it into perspective is this. When you think about, so when I ask a person, I'm like, what are some of your top values? They'll say, one of my top values is family and marriage, and then work. Okay, great. So how much training and education have you now gotten for that top value that you actually have? And most people are like, I don't know. I don't think I've actually gotten any kind of training. Put into perspective. So depending on our jobs and the careers that we actually have, a teacher, just looking at the training that they actually get, is about 10,000 hours of training a person will actually get to become actually a teacher or an accountant. A journalist will be about 8,000 hours. This is just your education, your training. This is not even in terms of the training actually on the job. A lawyer or doctor is about 15,000 to 20,000 hours. That's a huge amount of time that people are learning the skills and learning their craft and learning how to actually do it. Even if you actually compare something like exercising, how many hours do people actually spend exercising? If you're exercising 3-4 times a week, that's up to about 200, 250, 100 hours a year on actually exercising. So you put this into perspective, and then I ask people, so how many hours have you actually learned about training, how to be a great spouse, how to have a thriving marriage? And most people are like, nothing.
Well, where's that? Where do we take that class?
Well, and this is right. Well, this is actually, and that's why, you got to sign up. So that's why I am so passionate about talking about this, and that's why, coaching at our office with other therapists is one way to do it. That's why actually I love doing these segments, because it allows us to get some training. But in terms of the training, it's going to counseling, it's reading books, it's going to seminars. The information is out there, but we have to change our perspective that somehow we should just kind of know what to do.
So you're just thrown in, and it's on-the-job training. It's sink or swim, and this is a marriage. It's supposed to be one of the most important relationships you have in your life.
Right.
But you're just thrown in. And
you're thrown in.
What about having an example? What about having parents that have been in a successful marriage? Does that count?
Absolutely. And so that's why the stats are the best educators for this. Our best teachers really are our parents.
Okay.
So if our parents have a thriving marriage, there's a very high chance we're also going to have a thriving marriage, because it's like we're learning the skills. We're learning the language without even realizing that we're actually learning it. And that's why children of divorce have a much higher stats in terms of actually also divorcing, because they haven't learned the skills from their parents, and now they're actually repeating the same problem. But these are skills people can learn. It does not matter what our background is, our family. These are skills that actually people can learn, and that's why I get so excited about it.
Now, one of the biggest things you say that people need to do in a relationship is really be introspective and look inward.
Yes. So tip number 2 is really look inward. Are you actually ready for divorce? When people actually come in my office, and I don't tell people whether or not they should or should not. That's not my job. My job is to get them to learn to think. And so my question is, in a marriage, it's 50%, 50-50. So I want people to look inwards and say, what's your part in this? So that marriage is falling apart. What is your 50%? What is your part that has contributed to this marriage actually falling apart? Because one of the biggest mistakes people do is they point the finger. And they say, well, he didn't do this or she didn't do this, and we kind of point the finger. And we have to break out of that, because if we don't learn, we're going to repeat the exact same bad relationship into the next relationship.
Well, you talk about learning. We've got someone in our audience named Josephine.
Yes.
who has been through this, been through a couple of marriages, and has now learned. So a light bulb moment. Josephine, just really quickly, what have you learned through your experiences?
What I learned, first and foremost, is I wasn't looking to get married for the third time, but I was hoping, perhaps. So I made a list of the qualities that I wanted in a husband. But I think the most that I learned was I wasn't going to compromise on my hard-won independence, but I was going to compromise on the day-to-day. I was going to actively work this time instead of expecting someone to make me happy without letting him know what made me happy.
See, Josephine learned the lesson, and it took her a little while to get there, but the fact that she went through that introspection means that now, you know, you're going to have a successful marriage, you know, fingers crossed, and congratulations to you. So we're hoping that we can pick up this topic a little bit more, a little bit later in the show. It's a big one. It's a huge break. More coming out.